Let me go underneath the hood and transform it from the inside out. And let me birth the new version of me that's going to literally set the world on fire in a good way. That's what we're here to do. And so this is a really important call. Yo, Chris, man, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I'm just helping people reinvent their lives. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. Look, I'm going to join in.
Cool.
God bless, we're breaking these runs. Life too short to play on speed run.
Todd, what is on top of mind today? What are we going to cover today, my man?
Well, Chris, today we're going to have a little real talk, because when things in your career or your life are up in the air and you're motivated by this concept of reinventing yourself, it's almost a certainty that you're going to be confronted with doubts, frustration, and even imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to make this life happen and create this kind of success? There's something almost predictable around the process of trying to create real, sustainable, and positive change that brings to the surface these negative emotions. And for most people, these challenging feelings lead to acting out behaviors, right? Like the things that we go to feel better. And you know what I'm talking about, like the 4 hours of Netflix every night, the mindless scrolling on social media. For some, it's use of alcohol or substances, including food, by the way, that some people are drawn into the sugary bliss or the endless late night snacking. So in today's episode, we are going to address the beast head on, because to create our best life and our best work, we have to transcend the limiting beliefs and behaviors that keep us stuck. And as we always say here, Chris, reinventing your career is not just this hard, sloggy thing that you, quote, need to do. It's also an opportunity. And it's an opportunity to address and transform those parts of yourself that hide in the dark and struggle behind closed doors. Today, we're going to give you a series of practices for dealing with your negative patterns and thinking. So get out a pen and paper. This is really, really good stuff. And I know, Chris, we're not therapists or psychologists, but we've each helped a lot of people transcend themselves in this way. And it's relevant for both of us right now. And I know when we were preparing for this, you started talking about this kind of seasonal depression thing that you deal with. And I think this could be a good jumping off point because it's a real thing that you're dealing with.
I'm dealing with it now because it's this time of year always when the light gets short. And, living in New York, last week it was an average of about 17 degrees, it felt like every day. So you didn't want to be outside and it was gray every day. And that really affects me, right? Not getting the exposure to the light and all that stuff. But what really connects back to my career on this was when I was in technology procurement and we're trying to close all these big deals at the end of the year, like December 31 was like the date you were trying to close all these deals by. I had this scenario where it's the holiday season. I'm trying to be joyful, and especially once we had kids, be present and be joyful and excited. But then I'm like crazy busy. There were literally, I remember one call where I'm like negotiating with this woman who worked for some tech company, and I'm like hearing some background noise. We had a good rapport, and I was like, oh, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I'm making meatballs right now. You should be allowed to make meatballs without having to negotiate a deal. But like that was that corporate mind virus that we were just working every minute through this time of year. I was already having sort of just the generalized seasonal challenge of the darkness and the cold and the way that affects me on a biological level, right? And then layering on just the stress of pulling everything in. I mean, that whole mix was really difficult and really challenging and really negative. And, I had coping mechanisms back then that were not as healthy as the way that I deal with that same experience right now. And
Right.
So I don't want to make it story time about me there, but I'll pause for a second, Todd.
Well, no, I think it's really relevant. And I think it's a good example because we all have these meta patterns that we kind of fall into. And your story of approaching that time of year where in your corporate career is also a busy time tends to last, right? Because you're dealing with it now, even though you don't have that same corporate career, you're dealing with a negative pattern. And we're sitting here and we're reinventing ourselves. And we have this podcast and we're kind of in go mode. And you've been telling me I'm dealing with some stuff internally. And that's why we're doing this podcast, because it's the real stuff that we deal with. And the reason why we did this particular episode is that you started to share with me that you're really employing some strategies to combat this issue that you have during this time of year. And I'll give you a moment to share what strategies that you're doing. But I think it's really important because I've had this philosophy for many years where people will come to me in a coaching setting and they're dealing with some of these negative patterns, right? They're like, man, I just have no energy when I get up in the morning, or I find myself checking out in front of the TV every night, even though there's other things that I could be doing. What I have them do is what I call the crowding out approach, which is start making a list, and you can even write it down, but start getting mentally prepared around the activities that you can do to combat these negative things and start doing those things as a conscious practice, right? So why don't we talk about some of the things that you've been actually physically doing to combat the seasonal depression disorder? Because I think it's very relevant and parallels this crowding out approach.
Yeah, I mean, listen, number one thing is get outside and get that fresh air. I mean, if you look at what's different between this time of year and the rest of the year, it's we spend a lot of time indoors, and there's biology behind this too. You're literally not getting as much sunlight. So for me, I've really made it a practice this year, really fully. I've made it a practice more than even in last year or the year before. I'm getting out there. Sometimes I have to take my kid to the bus stop at like 7 a.m. I'm out there before then, getting some light. I'm lucky enough to live by the river here and just get up, look east and get some sunlight in the morning. Just making that a practice to get out there, no matter how crazy, stupid cold it is. And that's just a little thing. It's actually quite easy to do once I've kind of created a simple habit there to do that. And then the number two thing is just exercise, a commitment to exercise. I'm trying to work out 5 days a week consistently. I'll do 7 if I can do it, but I say 5 because I like to hit goals and not miss goals as much as possible. Especially at a time of year where, like, listen, I know if there's people who have seasonal depression or something like that, even just saying that, people are like, that's a high bar to clear sometimes. Just getting out of bed and getting out to the sunlight or exercising is a high bar to clear. Make the bar as low as you need to make it to clear. For me, it's like, I have this idea of Hoyle's definition of what a run is, where it's like, I run outside for 45 minutes and it's 3.5 to 4.5 miles at such pace. Yeah, but also if I go downstairs to the gym in the building and I run on the treadmill for 15 minutes, that counts.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like giving myself grace as I go through this, but really committing to just some little things that I can consistently do that, one, literally make me feel better in the moment, but two, are part of that habit formation that's like, I'm the type of person who does this.
Exactly.
As you said, the crowding out approach, it's creating this new neural pathway of every day I get up and I go outside. Every day or 5 days a week, I'm exercising. It's that positive reinforcement on a meta level is really effective to combating the bigger picture challenge of this, you know, this feeling or this experience at this time of year.
Breaking patterns requires effort, right? So I think this crowding out approach is good, and movement always works. Getting in the body, getting outside, exercising, getting light, like this always works, okay? It reminds me of a previous consulting job that I had working with Kaiser Permanente, big medical group, right? And my business partner at the time taught communications at Stanford Business School. It was like a very corporate environment. And she came in and told 100 doctors on the call that what they need to do over the next week was go outside barefoot and stand on the grass, find a lot of grass and stand on the grass in sunlight for like 20 minutes. And everyone just sat there like,
how'd that land with the room?
It was like hysterical, but it's pattern interrupt, breaking these patterns by doing something that almost seems absurd, but it's how you start to break patterns. Because that's what we're really talking about here, is that these things that we do, you know, like watching TV, and that's something that I do. And by the way, watching TV at night is not a bad thing. I don't make any of these behaviors bad. What you want to look out for is when it gets habitual and it's taking away your energy. Okay. And so let me give you a really good example of something that I did a couple of weeks ago. So it was like a rainy Sunday night. I was feeling really unmotivated, and you may deal with seasonal depression. I deal with the Sunday thing. I don't know what that's called, but it's like the Sunday thing. I get really down.
Do you have the Sunday scaries, Todd? Is that what it is?
That's what it is. Sunday scaries, right? So Sunday scaries, I'm dealing with it. I'm sitting there. It's like 6 o'clock. I'm watching TV. It's raining out. And I'm like, all right, how do I take my own coaching here? And I got up and I put on some clothes and I went for a walk in the dark, in the rain. And my wife's like, what are you doing right now? I'm like, I'm breaking a pattern. And I went for a walk and I go outside. There's no one outside. No one is walking in the rain. I live in LA. I take off my shirt and I'm walking shirtless in the rain. I'm like, I'm going to have fun with this. I start running, literally feel like Rocky here, but I'm also like laughing to myself because this is what you need to do. Like when you're dealing with some of these hardwired negative patterns, you've really got to start to break them by breaking them. You need to take action and you need to do things differently. And I think that's one of the most valuable things that I always recommend people to do. But I will say this, another approach on this, and we're going to go back to our favorite word on this podcast and all of our coaching, clarity. Getting clarity about what you want in your life and in your work is very handy and practical when it comes to breaking patterns. And here's why, okay? And just bear with me for a minute because we talk about clarity a lot. But when you take the time to envision what your life and your work could be like in its most ideal state, there's something so motivating and inspiring around that. And what I always tell people is that when you create that life vision for your work and everything, it provides you this subconscious fuel to get through the hard moments. Because we are going to go through hard moments and you are going to deal with these checkout behaviors and you are going to want to numb yourself in certain ways here and there. But having that vision is so very powerful because it gives you this thing inside your body that has you act in different ways. And that's a very important aspect as you're trying to make these changes.
There's an element for me in that where if I think of the binge Netflix behavior or whatever it is, that where the nuance, I'll go back for a minute. There's a nuance, right? Because there's nothing inherently wrong with watching a little TV or having whatever recreational activity that you have in some moderation. The nuance is when it turns into its escapism or its avoidance, where there's something that you want to be doing in your life or in your heart, in your soul, whatever it is, that instead what you're doing is this other thing that just is kind of neutral or negative time suck that's pulling you away from what you're doing. And this is why clarity is so important. Because for me, it's like clarity in what it is that I want to build, like what we're building together in Reinvention podcast and community and building a business and my one-on-one and all of that stuff. When I have clarity around that, it's much easier for me to say, hey, the type of person that I'm becoming and want to be that builds these businesses is not spending 4 hours binging Netflix every night.
Right.
And so there's a reason to be, and there's a reason to say, wait a second, we have to put this in its proper proportion. That's where that clarity comes in. I think we also talk about the fact of all these habits and behaviors, they don't exist in a vacuum. They're linked. There's a set of connections among them, right? So if you look at this idea of who is that person? What is that person's set of behaviors? Well, for me, that person who's building something takes care of themselves in terms of their mental and emotional and physical health. That person not only doesn't have the 4 hours to waste on binging TV, but doesn't waste 4 hours in general, right? There's a lot of those elements of becoming and acting in the moment as the person that we're striving to become and striving to be. And that comes from that clarity of vision of the future that we're going towards.
Yeah. I'll even take it a step further, something that I've called in my practice, walking as if. And I ran a program years back where I had a bunch of men. It was a very particular program that was geared towards men. And I had them do this work to get clarity, right? And it was all around this idea of, well, let's start to transcend and transform some of our negative patterns, right? And so I got them really excited about who they wanted to become. And then I challenged them for a week to walk as if they were already that person, okay? To literally get up in the morning, dress like that person, become that person, act like that person, eat like that person, work like that person. And it was really interesting because over a short period of time, people came back and they reported, I can't believe how much time I'm wasting on all of these behaviors that aren't really related to what I want to be doing in the world. And I think that just being human around it and being like, we are wasting time to some extent. And again, some of it's okay. Like this doesn't make watching TV a bad thing or scrolling on social media a bad thing or listening to podcasts. These are all fine things. But when you do get that clarity, it gives you an opportunity to sense into that version of yourself that represents your most idyllic state for work, for adventures, for making money and abundance. And that person, that version of you, acts differently in the world than you do right now. And when I tell that to people, they're like, oh my God, they get kind of shocked. But it's true. Like the best version of you, there's a delta between the way that person lives and breathes and acts than how you are most likely living and breathing and acting right now. And that delta is not a negative thing. It's your opportunity to change. It's your opportunity to say, all right, that's who I can become. Let me lift the record needle and start becoming that person. And it's in that process when you're looking out into the future of who you can become and you start matching and aligning your behaviors and your thoughts and your actions with that version, you're just going to run into this stuff, which is these old ways of being, these old parts of your identity that you need to put to bed a little bit. And this is actually how we break free and start to create some of these new scenarios in our lives.
I will say, I'll come from a personal place again, right? I will say that I have ADHD, right? And what that means is a lot of things, but one of the things it means is I am a small task accumulator, which means there's things that need to get done to get through the day that they're kind of onerous to me. I don't really find them scintillating and interesting, and crap that needs to get done will just pile up. As part of what our relationship, Todd, and as we've been building this business and I've been thinking about this, even though these are not things that have to do directly with reinvention in our business, I'm having that behavioral shift where I'm saying, hey, the type of person who is building this thing, who is leading this community, who is doing this, gets that shit done. And I go back to a phrase you say all the time, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And it's just me looking at it and saying, okay, maybe we can get into a whole debate about even like ADHD and spectrums and things like that, but maybe it's harder for me to get that stuff done than the average person. Who gives the average person isn't here. I'm here, and that's my stuff to get done. And the me I am becoming gets that stuff done. So you know what I've been doing, Todd? I've been getting the stuff done. And guess what? It feels great. And it feels great, and it reinforces that positive behavioral habit pattern. Not only does it reinforce the story of who I believe I'm becoming in a positive way, but it's telling the story, right? This is the feedback loop of the little things that we do, and we make these small choices to take action on these things. And then that is evidence supporting the belief of who we want to become. Right? I mean, we're talking about really little things in this example, but it adds up, and it is a really, really powerful dynamic that we can make these little choices throughout the course of the day to really create our future self in the image that we want to.
Yeah, I think you even brought up an even more important point, right? Going off script a little bit here, our business partnership is acting as a level of accountability for both of us, where you're now kind of gently, but also pretty directly pushing each other to become the versions that you want to be. This is why collaborations and accountability and finding people who are in your corner to help you create your best life is so very important. And one of the biggest diseases that we're dealing with in this modern world is isolation. People are so isolated, and there's so many different ways that it's hurtful. One of them is what we're talking about here, which is how to break patterns, how to change the way that we think and orient. We can't do that work ourselves, or maybe we can, but it'll go slower than if you have the assistance of an accountability partner, a business partner, could be your partner in life as well, as long as you're on board that you're doing that work together and there's clarity. Like, Chris, it's working for us because we're trying to build a business that has a vision. So we have a shared vision around something.
Right.
And because of that, both of us as individuals need to be honed in and crafted to be able to create the identities that create that success, to create that future. Okay. It could also be finding a community of support. This is why micro communities right now, like finding communities And I'm saying this after we just got off a call with our Reinvention community that was so beautiful in so many different ways, where people have found a group of people that are in a midlife career reinvention, not all exactly the same, right? There's different things that are happening for each individual, but the call is similar. Oh yeah, like we're dealing with mindset stuff, behavioral stuff, like how to change kind of some of these negative patterns. And we're dealing with tactical things about what do I need to do to launch this new business or explore these new ideas, right? So when you find that community and there's trust in that, it just accelerates your ability to become that version of yourself that represents your best. Look, what we're talking about here at the end of the day, it's all around work and finding your abundance, but it's also about trying to locate that version of yourself where in 30, 50, 70 years, depending on your age, you can look back in your life and say, I have no regrets. I left it all on the freaking table. I did the very best I could with the life I was given, the energy I was given, the talents that I was given. I did my very best and I went for it in this life. And that's my call to people, right, Chris? It's like, let's go for it. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy. It doesn't mean there won't be disappointment along the way. It doesn't mean that you won't fall backwards at times into some of these negative behaviors and checkout behaviors, because you will, but it's how quickly can you get back up on that horse and grow and lean in towards who you can become is the mark of greatness, right? And it always will be. And it's what we always learn. It's why we watch these YouTube videos and these TED Talks. It's what those people say. And so that's what we have to remember right here. And when you're talking about reinvention and our mission, it is also around our purpose and our work, right? And so some of these things that we do at night or we do surreptitiously count. And so the call here is just to employ some of these strategies so that way we can literally start to navigate them.
Right. You mentioned the community call that we just got off of before recording this. This is a tangent, but it was such a great moment in the call where we had someone who's having a tough time share in the community. And as soon as they shared what they were dealing with and trying to figure something out, everybody who was on the call was like, I can help with this. I can help with that. Would you like me to take a look at that? I'll help you with this. That was like such a very special, warm reinvention holiday moment for me. That was actually really awesome. You know, you talk about isolation as the disease, and we always talk about people who are reinventing your careers. Like, don't do this in a vacuum. Don't do this in isolation. Reach out and find your community, because when you're having these challenging times, there are people who are going to be willing to help you, who are going to have different insights than you and be able to look at things from a different perspective with some detachment and help you break out of it. I mean, that is just so critical. Again, it's a little different than the topic that we're on today, but I just had to mention it because
That's what we do, man. We go off on tangents.
we're skiing through the trees now, man. We're off piece.
We're skiing through the
you know?
trees, but the whole point of this is that our community is fodder for what we talk about here on this podcast, because we are literally coaching a whole group of people that are going through a reinvention, and we're hearing what they're dealing with. And this issue of, well, I got some of these negative patterns. I got some of these negative thoughts that then go to some of these checkout behaviors and numbing behaviors. We all deal with it. And all we're trying to do today in this episode is to address it and give some tactical ways that you can do it. So the first, obviously, is the crowding out approach. Like, literally get tactical around what are the things that you can do to start to add into your life, going outside, getting movement. Like, what things can you do to start to crowd out some of these negative behaviors? It's very tactical. It works. It's like a big thing in nutrition training. I'm certified in holistic health, right? I got certified a long time ago. I'm not a nutritionist, but I got trained. And they talk a lot about that when it comes to eating habits. It's very hard to just stop eating sugar if you're addicted.
Yeah.
But it's much easier to start adding in other healthier options. The second approach, right, is getting clarity. Get your life vision so juicy and so excited that it gives you that internal fuel to get through the hard times. So that way, when you're going to go check out and watch this, you ask yourself, who is the version of me? What would they do right now? And start walking as if you're that person. I love that term, Chris, walking as if. I mean, I think it's very powerful, and it'll change you, because transformation doesn't happen on a call like this. It happens in the moments of your life. You know, when you're about to check out and do something that you know isn't great for you, can you in that moment stop, lift up that record needle again, and walk as if you're that person? Okay. And then the third recommendation is this idea of getting support. Don't isolate yourself. I mean, this is obvious, but are you doing it? Do you have people, a community, an accountability partner, a friend that you could talk to about the real stuff that's happening that can help you navigate some of these moments in time where you're going to check out? And then the last one that we want to talk about today, which I think is a little bit more aggressive, but something that I've had, some success with, is what I call testing your resolve. And you make it a little bit of a challenge, right? So really starting to identify a behavior or two that represents you numbing yourself and checking out. So some of the ones we talked about today, scrolling on social media for hours on end, or watching a bunch of TV, like hours every night, that you could be using that time differently. Can you do a small experiment and say, for 20 days or 30 days, I am not going to do that activity. I'm not going to watch TV at night. I'm not going to do X for 30 days, just as an experiment, okay? And see what happens in that experiment. And I've coached a lot of people to do this. And if they're able to commit to it and actually go through it, it is so mind-blowing, Chris, what happens. Like, people find that they have so much more time on their hands and so much creativity bubbles up. They get back into shape and they start eating better. All these things happen. And so test your resolve is another really good, real tactical technique to start dealing with some of this kind of negative behavioral stuff.
I want to share one that I'm actually doing right now. This is a fun one. So, I've got my Whoop, right? And my wife always makes fun of my Whoop that tells me crazy insights like drinking is bad and sleeping is good. And my buddy, who I know listens to the podcast, he'll love this because we always talk about our Whoops. And I was sitting there comparing our data on the phone, and it's like, hey man, why is your Whoop age so much younger than mine? It's like, oh, my sleep consistency. I get to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time every day. And I'm looking at mine, and mine is, a plane going through turbulence. And I'm like, oh, damn. And I realized, what was happening, Todd, as a business person who's promoting his business and reinvention, and I'm going on social media to make posts and edit my posts, but then some scrolling kind of slips into that, Todd. Maybe I'm doing a little market research, and next thing you know, it's 11:43 or whatever it is. So I committed, after seeing this data right in front of me, and by the way, this is a plug for accountability and tracking. After seeing that data in front of me, I said, you know what? I'm going to get my sleep consistency up. So what I'm going to do for the next 30 days, basically the remainder of December, because this was a couple weeks ago, I am going to commit to getting to bed between 10 and 11 consistently. And that means reducing the scrolling, because that's where the scrolling sneaks in. And let me tell you, first of all, just after like a week and a half of doing that, immediately feeling better and just more consistent. We opened this up with talking about seasonal depression. Well, that hasn't been at the party for basically since I've started doing this. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. Correlation is not causation, but let's just put it out there. But then also seeing the data on the Whoop of like, this week, your sleep consistency was 78% versus 63%. Getting that positive reinforcement from the tracking and accountability, and just knowing that I have clarity about, the goal is I'm going to get my relative Whoop age down. And obviously that's got health benefits. It's not just about the number. But the secondary thing that's come out of that is like, there's so much time to do stuff, even going to bed earlier, because I'm not doing the scrolling. I'm getting like an hour back of productivity that I can get some stuff done. You've seen some stuff get sent over to you late night because of this. Do you know what I mean? And some of the work we're doing. So it's been like bing, 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 like 3 or 4 different great effects have come out of this. So, I mean, that's just a real world example that, please, anyone who's listening, steal that one and do it yourself, or your version of it. I mean, this is not some groundbreaking, huge shift I had to make. I mean, these are pretty small things, but huge impact.
What's interesting is we all have so much more potential that's currently in play. And that's why I love this notion of reinvention. Reinventing yourself is an opportunity to raise the level of potential that's in play. Let's say you have 10%. Do you realize how much your life would change if you went from 10% to 15%? And these practices that we talked about today of crowding out, testing your resolve, and doing a challenge, and starting to look at your behaviors and getting an accountability partner, and all these things that we just talked about today, you have the power to make change in your life. You have the power, okay? You already know what you need to do. You just need to literally get more disciplined And discipline doesn't just require this very military negative thing. Part of discipline is getting clarity. People don't understand. It's like when you get clarity about what you really want, that's an exciting thing. Get disciplined about getting clear about what you want. That's an enriching, nourishing, motivating activity to take on. And it will serve your ability to break out of negative patterns that for a lot of us are so deeply rooted, we can't even see them any longer. And they're draining our energy.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that our energy is being drained in this modern world. And the call of reinvention is to be like, this moment in time is mine. I'm going to take this as a freaking opportunity to not only create a career and make money doing things that might be more related to my purpose, but as an opportunity to transcend these negative patterns, these negative beliefs that have plagued me for decades. Like, F that. Let me take it on. Let me go underneath the hood and transform it from the inside out. And let me birth the new version of me that's going to literally set the world on fire in a good way. That's what we're here to do. And so this is a really important call. And we will talk a lot about personal growthy stuff like this and breaking patterns and all that, because it's not just tactical and like, well, what careers and industries are going to have money? Yeah, we're going to talk about stuff like that too a lot on this podcast, but it's really the deep inner work where a lot of the change is going to happen and a lot of your success is going to emerge from.
Absolutely. This is really critical stuff. And discipline is a factor, right? But I am going to speak this to my seasonal depression suffering brethren in this moment. Is like, that's a really hard pill to swallow, right? Oh, I just discipline. Because you hear some of these people are just like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just do it, whatever. But I'm telling you, there's small changes, there's small behaviors, there's small habits. What did I start with in this conversation? Go outside for 5 or 10 minutes and get a little sun in the morning. There's like 2 or 3 little things that you can start to consistently do that are going to make big, big changes, completely outsized, disproportionate changes. And then guess what? Todd, I love when you talk about this. We really are only tapping into such a small fraction of our capacity and capability. When you start to do these little things, there's so much more opportunity in life that opens up to you. And you have to just believe enough to take that little action and start the momentum on it. And that's everything.
I love these conversations, man, because they motivate me. You know, talking it out like we do, it's not just we're coming from some mountaintop. We're coaching ourselves in these conversations, and we're reminding ourselves that there's more that we could be doing to unveil our higher potentials in this lifetime, right? And so that's why you're always invited into these conversations. If you love what we talk about, follow us along on social. Definitely follow along our Reinvention podcast. We're going to be doing a lot of episodes. It's just like our passion to be talking about this and giving people real tools so that way they can really navigate and find abundant success faster than they would if they didn't find this. So follow us along. And Chris, man, as I always say at the end, awesome being here with you, man.
It's a pleasure.
It's always
The
fun
best.
and juicy. It's the best, and can't wait for more.
There's no fear